All right. And I'll go, by the way, I have this morning free, so I'll go as long as I need to. I mean, I'm not supposed to be working today, so, but I'm here for y'all because, again, our travel schedule, I was just explaining to them, Ivy Plus, the trip in Puerto Rico that we were on. Well, let me pause this for a second. So just for anyone watching this, I'm Marissa Yanez. It's the day after Thanksgiving, November 29th. Your applications are due, what, in 3 days? 3 days? Yeah. I'm the Chief Diversity Officer for the College of Chemistry at UC Berkeley. I'm doing a last minute office hour for students that we met at Abercams and at Ivy Plus these past 2 weeks. I'm giving some last minute advice. There is already the video that most of you have received by now that I do talk about kind of like the content that should be in the statements. However, this year there was a change that I noticed in the application when I was meeting with some of my students who were in my summer research program on Wednesday, that they now have this new essay, which is called the personal statement, which is a third essay, but it asks the question, how have you overcome barriers to access higher education? How have you come to understand the barriers faced by others, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You all have seen it because hopefully you've done all your essays by now because they're due in a couple days. I'm a big fan of this statement and of it being a separate essay because, and I think this is in response to the Supreme Court decision that although University of California banned affirmative action in the 1990s, this makes it much easier for us to identify stories of resilience, stories of overcoming barriers, and really be able to quantify it because a lot of students don't have this. And before this was mixed into another, the second essay, and it was harder to see the students that had this and the students that didn't have this. Although I could see it, the faculty would, it was just harder to be able to quantify it. And now this is really great because a lot of you do have very, very powerful stories, and then you also have done extraordinary work. So it makes it easier to quantify all of it combined. But in helping my students on Wednesday, literally flew in from Puerto Rico and then I was on Zoom with them in the afternoon. It's just been a crazy time. But I had some last minute, like I was giving them feedback and I was like, let me take these notes for myself and then give you all the same feedback. So I'm going to give you guys all some extra pointers, and it actually made me realize that for next year's cycle, I'm going to do a video just on chemistry and chemical engineering on the statements itself, and just talk about how to optimize those statements, and then distribute it that way because I think it's going to be really helpful. But anyway, I'm in my second year now of this job, so learning as we go. Okay, so let me talk about some pointers. So first of all, for this personal statement. The questions are very clear, so I don't think I need to really talk about what. But one of the things I noticed in reading my students' essays is like, um, when you talk about obstacles, I think it's very important to really reflect on each obstacle that you've gone through and now how that has turned into a strength and how that strength is going to benefit you moving forward. So that it's not just a story about, so it's not just kind of quote a sob story, right? It's like, so for example, one of my students talked about, I I go to a Hispanic serving institution that is very resource poor. As a result, I didn't have access to a lot of equipment in the lab. When I would read procedures and other papers, I'd have to figure out how we could do the same procedure with the limited resources that we had. It would made it very challenging, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And I said, perfect. Now turn that into, UC Berkeley is a public school. If you get in, you'll come to UC Berkeley and you'll see that there are differences between UC Berkeley and Caltech and MIT. A lot of our labs are older, infrastructure is breaking down. A lot of times you have to be like, our students are scrappy. They figure out how to make things, they figure out how to get things done. And when they go into industry, they're so powerful because they've learned that skill. So now you take that, you've already figured that out in undergrad. Now you are not intimidated when there aren't the resources that you need. It's going to make you an extraordinary asset as a grad student, et cetera. Like the not having the nicest facilities is something that doesn't faze you, and then you could even then turn that into like, this being a great match for UC Berkeley. Like you look forward to like you've talked to the grad students, they're scrappy, they get things done. Like you've already figured that out as an undergrad. So like that's an example of um, you know, uh, taking your obstacle and then thinking through how it benefits you and including that as part of the narrative, you know? So, um, another example is like, I had to learn organic chemistry during COVID. I had to learn through Zoom. I really understood because one of them was in Puerto Rico. I really understood with limited access to internet the differences between students who have privilege and students who don't have access to privilege, because I was one of those students that didn't have access to privilege. That, as a GSI at UC Berkeley, will make me very aware of the differences between the students that we're teaching and what they may have access to. It'll make me extremely powerful as a GSI in terms of like making sure that we're providing the support we need equitably to all students from all diverse populations. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like you're taking these obstacles and then you're just thinking about what is your life going to be like as a grad student, and how does that obstacle and what you've gained turn you into an asset in the future? That is going to be very powerful for our faculty because I can see that stuff because I know my student population. I've been working with students from diverse backgrounds my whole life, even when I was an undergrad myself from a minority background at Berkeley. I was a transfer student. So I was aware of this stuff my whole life. But a lot of our faculty, they're just like, oh yeah, they've overcome all that. That sounds great. But they don't see necessarily, or they can't, because if they haven't been in a similar situation, it's harder for them to see how much of an asset that is. And so it's easier for them to be like, oh, but their GPA is 0.1 lower. We'd rather have the GPA that's 0.1 higher. You know what I mean? And not realize like, no, this is the student you want. So I want you guys to really, and I want students to really write those narratives, write that essay in a way that you're taking each obstacle and turning it into an asset and being very concrete about that, how that asset will make you powerful as a grad student and in the future. Okay? All right, that's piece of advice number one. Two, and this goes for all the essays, especially in the research statement and especially in so it's the personal history. Wait, let me see. They all have statement of purpose. One of the things I was seeing that was happening is that students make general statements like, I presented at science conferences. During my undergrad, I attended science conferences. No, not even I presented. They'll be like, I attended several science conferences. No. Then I ask them, did you attend? How many? Oh, I did Abercams, I did SACNAS, and I did something in my state, the California or whatever it is, right? And I'm like, okay, did you attend or did you present? Oh, I presented my research. Okay. Presenting your research at 3 different conferences, including 2 of them being international, is very different than I attended science conferences. That doesn't mean anything. That's a general statement that could mean anything. That could mean you went in as a visitor to the local conference down the street and then like just observed and then went away. But like that's very different than presenting a poster on your research at Abercams, a national conference, you know? So I'm like, be specific. I presented my research at the annual Biomedical Research Conference for Minority Scientists, because the term Abercams, some of our faculty don't know it. Some of our faculty don't know Novache. They don't know SACNAS. You can say it once full and then put it in parentheses and then refer to it that way moving forward. But you say, I presented my research. I gave a talk on my research at this particular meeting, and list out, quantify each thing. Then for the research statement, they would be like, they would describe their research experience, and then they would say, I am currently a first author on a publication that we're preparing. And I'm like, okay. Or I am currently a first author on a publication that has been submitted for review. Okay. Where has it been submitted for review? Oh, JAX. That's a big deal. Because submitted for review could be submitted for review to the journal down the street. That doesn't mean anything. But if it's submitted for review to JAX by a known professor at one of these universities, that means that professor knows that that's quality for JAX, which is the staple journal. So you say, I have prepared as co-author a manuscript that has currently been submitted to JAX, Journal for American Chemistry Society, and is currently under review. You know, that is a much more specific, quantifiable, or even it's being prepared for a specific journal. When you're preparing a manuscript, you know who you're preparing it for. Your advisor will tell you this is good for this particular journal. And some journals are higher ranked than others, you know? So you say, I am currently preparing as lead author or as co-author with my advisor research from this project for submission to this journal. That is a lot more reputable than just I'm submitting to a journal. You know, students say, oh, they think, oh, they want to know about our publications. Yes, but they also want to know about the quality of, like, how real is that publication? And something that's been submitted to JAX with you as co-author or you as lead author as an undergrad is a lot more impressive than just saying it was submitted for review for God knows where. I mean, sometimes universities have these like internal, just like University of Michigan Journal of whatever. Like that could also be a journal, right? That's not the same as JAX. It's great. When I was an undergrad, I had something published by at the time it was the Harvard Undergraduate Science Journal, like Journal for Undergraduate Science, you know, which is great. It's Harvard, but it's not necessarily Journal of Molecular Biology or whatever, like where I had papers submitted and published later, you know? So so quantify quantify everything. Now, one thing I like to see that really, really helps faculty, especially in these research statements or in the statement of purpose, like especially where the statement of purpose says, how have you prepared for graduate school? I like the first paragraph to have a highlight reel, to be a highlight reel of what they're about to read. So what do I mean by that? I often will meet with students that like they have 3 years of research, including 2 years at their undergrad, one summer at Caltech, one summer at University of Michigan. They were also president of their SACNAS club. They also TA'd. Okay, let's use that as an example. But those 6 things, right? But I don't know about those 6 things until I dig through the essay, and somewhere at the very end, I'll find, oh, you were also president of SACNAS. That's a big deal. SACNAS is a known organization, and that means you did a lot. You know, you also were a mentor in your community and started a new program to expand chemistry to high school students in a local low-income community. That's also a big deal. But like these faculty are reading, we get last year, I think we got almost 1,200 applications for 200 acceptances. So each faculty are spending their Christmas break reading 103, and now there's 3 essays for each of the students. They are skimming so quickly that they will often miss those details. But if you put the highlights in the first paragraph, so you say, in summary, I have 3 years of research experience, including 2 at the University of Michigan, my home institution as an undergrad during the school year. Ooh, okay. Hi, Janae. We're in it right now. I just went through a bunch of stuff, but I am recording. So I will send the full recording after. So just follow along from where we're at, and then I'll send the full recording after. Okay? Janae, where are you from?
California.
But what school?
Spelman, sorry.
That's right, Spelman. Okay, great. I'm so glad you joined. Okay, great. Okay. So yes, please remind me, I did decide to record this because this is very, very important information. And as soon as we finish, I will upload it to a private. I'm not going to make this one public, but I will upload it to a private channel and send you all the link. Okay, on my YouTube. Okay. So where was I? Highlight reel. So don't make them dig through the entire essay to find those key things that are really like the big bullet points that they need to walk away with. So you start with, for example, let's take the statement of purpose. I have a total of 3 years of research experience, including 2 years at my home institution, the University of Michigan, under the advisor of so-and-so, one at Caltech under so-and-so, and one at Spelman under so-and-so, you know? I also TA'd as an undergrad organic chemistry, which would give me great experience as a GSI. In addition, I've amplified this or I've supported this through my extraordinary extracurriculars, including being president of my SACNAS chapter. Or if you're a transfer student, put that up front as a transfer student, I blah, blah, blah. As a first gen student from a low income background, put those things up front. Because I think they might be taking the underrepresented minority label off the applications. So they need to see those things in your essays, you know? Like as a first gen Black woman who's highly underrepresented in STEM, from an underserved background, like put those things in their face so it's very clear, own your identity, and then put the strengths, um, all of the highlight reel in a first paragraph, and then go into the essay describing each one of those things fully. But don't make them dig through for the highlights, because often if you don't put it in their face up front and grab their attention and make them really want to pay attention to the rest of your essay, those things will get missed because of how many essays people are reading and how much we're asking now students to submit. It's impossible to pick up all those details. So each first paragraph of each of your essays should be a highlight reel that takes all the highlights from your essay, puts it up front, and then you go into the details of each thing in your essay. Does that make sense? Okay. So we talked about quantifying things. Janae, you're going to watch the video. And if you have any questions, send me an email after that. We talked about quantifying things, including publications, which conferences you attended. Did you attend? Did you present? Don't make general statements like I just attended. I talk about that more. And we talked about also the importance of how you take the obstacles and turn it into assets. So really look at that part, Janae, when I send it to you, because that's very, very important. All right, now I want to talk about the last thing that really stood out is they are very specific about this. The part that says, why are you a good fit for UC Berkeley? Nobody ever knows how to answer that question. And I've been there a year now, so I'll tell you what makes UC Berkeley different. One, UC Berkeley, for people who want to be professors, I don't think there's any better place that you could go because UC Berkeley requires you to do 3 semesters of GSIing, graduate student instruction. And really, students are very particular about making sure they do an undergrad, like a lower division class, a higher division class, and then a class in their specialty, so that when they're applying for these faculty positions, they have a range of teaching experience that really makes them a strong candidate for these teaching experiences, for these professorships. Oftentimes, students from other universities that I won't name right now because now I'm recording this, that have classes with only 20 students and they only have to GSI maybe once, when they're applying for positions at Berkeley, and our Berkeley faculty are teaching classes of 400 students. We teach STEM at scale. That is one of the big things. We are not a tiny private university that only teaches classes of 20 students where the students are handheld throughout each class. We are teaching classes at scale. The GSIs have 100 students per discussion section. You are learning to deliver support to a diverse population of students. We're almost an HSI, so almost 20% of our student body is Hispanic. A lot of our students, the state of California has the 40th public school education system. We have a poor education system. So, and because we admit students from across all of our schools, almost half of our students are coming in without AP chemistry. So, and they're in the same classes as students who have taken 17 AP classes from the best high schools in America, because it's UC Berkeley. So how do you deliver support to students from such a wide range of backgrounds? But you are learning to do that, and we coach you to do that, and we train you to do that. And I'm now getting more involved in helping our GSIs really think through how to provide a range of support. And also as a college, we're thinking through how to provide more support to that students who don't have the same background. But you're getting that experience as a GSI that's going to make you very powerful as a professor. So you should want to GSI. You should want to GSI a diverse range of students. You should want to, you could point out that Berkeley, you know that Berkeley is almost an HSI, and you're excited about GSIing a diverse population of students. You're excited about GSIing at scale. You're excited about learning those skills because most of our competitive institutions, I mean, we're the top. So we're actually ranked number one in both chemistry and chemical engineering. So our competitors are Caltech, Stanford, um, Caltech there, and MIT. Okay, those are where if they don't pick us, they're usually going there. Um, and all three of those schools have tiny classes. A lot of them don't require you to GSI. So if you want to be a professor, it should be very attractive. Like they want to see students that want to GSI because a lot of our students then come and they get overwhelmed by GSIing and then they're not the right fit, you know? So so that's one thing that stands out. The fact that we offer classes at scale is another thing that stands out. The fact that we're a public institution, which means our students are scrappy. We don't have sometimes the same resources, but we have the best minds. We have Lawrence Berkeley Lab up the hill. We have the best facilities. We have the labs at Lawrence Berkeley Lab are phenomenal. The collaborations among UC Berkeley, if there's like not something in one of your labs, but there's a nanotech guy in bioengineering that's doing something super cool that has equipment you can use, you can collaborate, you know? So just like the cross collaboration nature, the fact that we are top among all STEM disciplines and we are scrappy. So like the idea to work across, like work with different, like work interdisciplinary to like figure things out and to work with a population of students that like figures out things. You're really learning to gain those skills so that when you go out in industry, you don't have everything handed to you. You know how to figure out things when not everything is handed to you. So that should be an attractive part, you know? Um, Three, we are a public institution. We have a commitment to serving the public. You can talk about that. You know, why does that matter to you? Like, why does that align with your values? Like, we want students that feel this kind of like greater mission to create science that serves the public, you know, that aligns with like what is in the best need, what is in the best interest of the public. Four, we have an extraordinary commitment to DEIB. They hired me. We have an associate dean of DEI, Ann Berenger, and me for a small college, which means you guys can mention that you met me at Abercrombie or Ivy Plus, that my commitment to advancing outcomes for equitable populations has attracted you, that you look forward to working with me to amplify the work that we're doing to reach vulnerable communities, that you are impressed by the work that we've done, you know, over the past year, that you're impressed with our commitment in being out at places like Abercrombie or across Puerto Rico or whatever it is. Um, and that is also something you want to do. You can mention NODE, NODE, which is one of our undergrad, our grad student, graduate student group that does work to advance DEIB. You can mention BASIS, which is the BASIS, which is the group that goes out in the community and offers chemistry lessons to students, particularly in low-income schools. You can mention um, loving that it's a large campus and being able to also connect with student organizations like Laxis or BJS. This is all stuff that you can find on the website, but they like to see that you've looked at Berkeley specifically as an institution and that you are attracted to Berkeley. And that is on top of then naming, you should be naming at least three professors that you're interested in working with. Here's another hint. They should be in the same subdiscipline. So I'm going to switch topics now. So I think those are like the four things that I can think of that really make Berkeley Berkeley. Because everyone says, oh, I'm attracted to the fact that they're top in research. Well, all these schools are top in research, you know? So why? Because they want to admit students that they feel are actually going to come to Berkeley, you know? So those are things, those are key things that really make Berkeley stand out and really they differentiate us from the other universities. Other people also mention the Bay, that it's in the Bay and there's access to a lot of innovation, et cetera, We have a lot of innovation hubs, we have Haas School, but those are more generic things that other people are going to mention too. I'm giving you more insider things that like isn't as obvious. Okay. Another thing I want to switch to now, it is very important to mention at least three faculty that you're interested in working with. Something that I saw last year that happened was that students would mention their top three or four faculty, and it was like someone in theory, someone in physical chemistry, someone in synthetic. Synthetic is both organic and inorganic, someone in synthesis. And the faculty would be like, this person doesn't know what they want. And also, when your applications are reviewed, they're reviewed by one of these three subgroups: chemical biology, synthesis, or um, theory. So where does physical chemistry fall? I think under synthesis. Yeah. Synthesis is inorganic, organic. Theory is obviously theory. And then chemical biology is the other group. So when you're looking at the faculty, it'll kind of say which one they are. Make sure that your expertise is really in one of those three areas, and then that you're naming faculty. I know, Kaisi, you have a unique situation, and we can talk about that when we meet separately. But it's very important that it is a concentration of faculty that are in the same specialty, so it shows that you know which specialty you want to go into. That was often a common thing that I would see, and that I'd argue with the faculty about. They're like, yeah, but this student doesn't even know what they want. They have one faculty here, one faculty there, one faculty there. Like they're not even the same. Like they don't know what they want. They're going to come here. They're going to have no idea what they want to do. By this point in their career, they should know their specialization. They should be very clear on that. For a place like Berkeley, I can't really argue back because that's the way they are. So now I'm going to pause. I think those are the big things that are in addition to, Janae, did you watch the video that I sent out? So Janae, you should also watch that video, in particular when I talk about the essays. I sent it in the email. So you should watch that. And then these are pointers that are on top of everything I mentioned in the essay. It's like an hour and 10 minutes, and some of it is like why to go to graduate school, how to apply for funding. Just skip through that part. Just go to when I talk about the statements. Okay, because I give some good advice about the statements there. And then watch back this recording, because I talked about what was it called? The one that asks you about obstacles. I talked about really how to frame that in a way where you're turning your obstacles into assets. Okay, so I talked about that just before you signed on. So when I send out the recording, watch that back as well. So I actually want to now stop this recording. Yes, let's stop the recording, because I think it's very important that you all mention faculty that I know are taking students, because if you mention faculty that are not taking students, you're wasting a chance, because that's not going to be reviewed by that faculty because they're not taking students. So I'm going to stop. Yeah. This is another thing I want to include. Another thing they look at is improvement in GPA. If they like you and your GPA is on the slightly lower end, they will look at, did you start with B's and end with A's? Where your lower division B's and then your upper division A's. Sometimes I argue for a certain GPA, and you'd be surprised. I'm arguing for like a 3.65 from Penn, and they're like 3.65 from Penn is low because Ivy Leagues do inflate GPAs. Sorry, Harvard. Sorry, they do, So like, and Berkeley does not. So, and I didn't realize that, but they're like, but look, they got B's all the way through. They're not top in chemistry, right? Whereas we had students that like were impacted by the Hurricane Maria hurricanes, and then they were taking class online with weak infrastructure, internet. So their freshman year, the grades were not great, But then by the time they got back on campus, there was an improvement. And so they went, and sometimes they wouldn't necessarily notice that unless they were really like, I was like, look at their transcript, right? And they do look at those transcripts if they like you, if they're trying to find a reason to like you, to advocate for you. So if there has been, like, when you talk about obstacles, if those impacted your GPA in some way, if you talk about, I mean, this is extreme case, I was homeless for a semester, or I had food insecurity for a semester, or whatever. And then my GPA, you can say my GPA that semester was a 3.3. However, once things stabled out, I finished my junior year with a 3.9. I got all A's in my upper division chemistry courses, things like that. Like I went from B's because I came from a high school where I didn't have AP Chem. I'm a first gen student. I was still navigating college by myself. I was still navigating financial aid freshman year. So I did get a few B's my freshman year. But by my junior year, I have a 4.0. I'm not saying this is the case, but if there is an improvement like that and your obstacles did impact your GPA, and once you overcame those obstacles, the GPA went up, you have to say it because they may not notice it, and that's a big deal because they do actually care about that. But oftentimes they don't investigate deep enough to see that that's what actually happened. I really that's another big thing that you should definitely mention if there's improvement in your GPA. And like I said with Kyle, like that upper division GPA, like even if they don't ask for it, if it happens to be higher than your overall GPA, throw it in. Why not? You know? I mean, that's my advice. But definitely mention if there's improvement in the GPA or if some of these obstacles impacted you. And then once you focused, they went up, you know? Okay. Any other questions? Yes. I'm going to zoom in. So first of all, just to be clear, research summary or research statement, because my student has it listed as research statement. This is the one that says, please upload a PDF summarizing the research projects in which you have participated. Include research carried out during regular, this is the one, right? This is the one you're
Yes.
talking about? Oh, I can't see you. Sorry.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry. Yeah, no worries. Yeah.
So it's not so cut and dry. It's almost like, um, oh, I see. Okay. Um, so for each project, they want to know, um, like this project, the goal of this project is to include research carried out. Okay. So it's kind of like your first research project was under the PI of so-and-so, was the research manager so-and-so at this institution. Then they almost want like a mini story for each project. Like they want to see that you could actually convey scientific research in a way that's understandable. So you should say, like, the specific goal of this project was to, I don't know, let me just think of identify the mechanism in which this bacteria degrades this specific polymer for the purposes of green chemistry. Then you want to say the impact of this work is to like develop new ways of creating sustainable or biodegradable materials for so and so. Like you want to give like the bigger picture reason of the research, the specific aim of your research, then what specifically did you do? What was your aim? Then what did you do to get to that? You ran these essays. It's almost like a mini abstract for each project.
Mhm.
Think that way. A mini
Right.
abstract for each project. Um, and then you can say, this research is under, as a result, I presented this research at Abercam's or whatever, and at this place. And I'm co-author, and this is if it's leading to any publication. I'm co-author on a publication that's being prepared for this particular journal.
Right.
So like a mini abstract for each research project, and then what are the tangible things that you're doing from that research project, and then on to the next one. And almost like what I like to see too is like if there's a transition, Like, for example, if students did research at their home institution and suddenly they switched to another lab at their home institution, they should kind of say, like, after developing and honing my expertise in synthesis, I realized that I really am drawn towards the synthesis of materials for sustainability because I've developed a big interest in environmental and sustainable technologies for the future. So then, like, have a reason for the pivot. Because otherwise, they kind of don't want to see that you're just going all over the place. They want to see that you're
Mhm.
mindfully developing an expertise that goes towards what you want to do in graduate school.
Right.
It's a
And
little
so,
like dry. Like, don't just be like, ran 5 columns, got this result, blah, blah, blah. You know
right.
what I mean? Like, it's not that. It's a little story about each research project, a little abstract about each research project, really. And the more it's written
Gotcha.
that way, it's quite impressive because they want to see that you can convey the bigger picture, the specific thing, what specifically you did. And even like, I have a student that talked about in that research project, she was doing this. These challenges came up. To pivot from those challenges, she did X, Y, and Z. Then she was able to get this result. That shows that, like, you know how to work through challenges. It's definitely not just it's not just like I took this procedure from my mentor and just ran it based on the list of 1 through 10 that they gave me to do.
Right.
They
Right.
want that you can think through how you navigated through that research project. Now, I do see some that are cut and dry,
Mm.
and 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 this is actually because before this was asked as the research statement, and so it kind of made it more like an essay. Now I guess it's being called a research summary. So I wonder how people are going to write it. Like, my student wrote it very much like a statement, but now that you're describing it, because last year they did have a separate section that was like just your research summary where they almost wanted you to rename your research projects again. This
Um,
It looks like this time it's a little bit different. So I think we're going to get a combination of like your traditional research statement and um, but it should be exclusively on research. And I think the more you can go into a little bit of details, it's good. But then, and then do make sure that it doesn't duplicate the personal statement. Wait, not the personal statement, the statement of purpose.
as far as like my experiences would be duplicated because in the narrative that I create as far as my academic journey, I do mention at least the relevant research experiences that I've had in my standard statement of purpose. But this one I have like some things that I left out just because it wasn't relevant to the field that I want to go into and etc. So I've gone into more depth. I'll include things like challenges, specific things that I overcame, what I learned, the outcomes, and have it read like an abstract, like how you were mentioning.
Mhm.
But my concern was that there's a good amount of overlap in what I have in this and my statement of purpose.
Yeah, the statement of purpose is a little bit more because it asks, okay, please describe your aptitude and motivation for graduate study in your area of specialization, including preparation for your field of study. So preparation for your field of study means both your research experiences as well as, did you GSI, did you TA, did you mentor, did you do anything else that was also relevant towards um, you know, what you're going to do as a graduate student and moving forward. And then they also ask your academic plans or research interests and your future career goals. And they say, why is UC Berkeley specific? So in a
Right.
question that general, there's no way you're going into I like a mini abstract for each research experience. You're
Hmm.
going more into I worked under this lab for this amount of time. I was able to identify a new way of contracting cycloamine cores for drug development. Like the big picture thing that you were able to get, that went towards a publication in this, and that I would present it at this conference. That's about as much. And through that, I honed my expertise and my desire to continue in this field of whatever. That's about as
Gotcha.
much with all the things they're asking. That's about as much as you can say for each experience. Whereas the research summary, they almost want like that mini abstract. They want to see that you really understand the nuances of the science, that you
Right.
really, and that you also know how to communicate science. So,
Gotcha.
because yeah, so that's like that's the difference. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a couple more things, but I don't know if somebody
No,
else has
I'm here for
questions
as
too.
long as you
Okay.
guys want. I actually have a 12 o'clock, but I'm going to move it back. So,
I can be super, super quick.
no, I'm going to move it back because I still also want to talk to Kaisi. And then, Kyle, I did promise you a quick look at your stuff because you were the first one on Zoom. So let me push her back to, let's see, 2. Okay. Let me also just send her a text really quick. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so on the same page right above where it's asking for your research summary, that section where you briefly ch tell why you chose to rank the faculty in that order. So at the end of my or at one point towards the end of my statement of purpose,
Oh, wait,
I